everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ecko Chamber. I'm your host, J.ecko. How you doing? How you living? How you feeling? Today, we're doing something a little different. I'm joined by my man, my homie, my brother, Rodney Watkins, aka Hot Rod, aka a whole bunch of stuff.
You don't have
That,
it all. Yeah,
I got
that's yeah.
you. But go ahead and introduce
Sure.
yourself.
So as he did with all them names there, but basically I'm Rodney. I've known JD since college. We both went to George Mason. Go Patriots, GMU what? So I'm just here to have some fun, answer some questions, and let's just feel free, right?
Yep. So today, which is we've been there's been a pattern over the past couple episodes of us discussing dating with intention, dating with purpose, dating with reason. And I ain't finna put everybody business out here in these streets, but we are uh, we are in our 30 something. We're a little older in the dating game,
Mhm.
so we're during that phase in our lives where we're trying to be more intentional about how we date, who we date, all of that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
So, I would like to bring him on as somebody who is about to get out there in them
Mhm.
streets again.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, what just have discussions with him about his intention and everything like that. So we're going to start with my first question, which
Yes.
is, how what's it called? What is we've talked about dating with intention and everything like that, but what
Mhm.
are some of the practices and processes you're putting in place to
Mhm.
make sure you're being intentional about dating?
Sure. So I would say first, thank you for the opportunity to come on there. So I would definitely recommend people a couple of things before you put yourself out there. One is making sure, like myself, who was in a 3 year relationship, a lot of things happened there, to take time for yourself. I took a year. I did go out there and try to go out there early and do my thing, and I learned from that. Not to put yourself that early out there. But after that, I took the time to work on me and figure out again why I got in a previous relationship. Are there any issues that I need to resolve so that I don't block myself from having the right person or still attracting the wrong people in my life? Part of that was, going to the gym more, just getting the body right and then the mind right, also in that case. But then with the mindset, going to therapy and talking about things and getting those unresolved issues out of the way so that you can focus. And once you do that, then you have clarity, your head is clear, you know what you want, you know what you need to do to prepare yourself mentally because going out there, it's rough and it could have a mental toll on you if you're not prepared. So I think that's the first step. But then also when I'm going out there, make sure I have my, top boxes, and it doesn't have to be the first top 20. It could be top three, top five, and sticking to it and making sure that when I talk to people, I'm making sure they check those boxes. I'm screening, I'm vetting, and I'm making sure that they actually fit the qualifications that I really want them to have. And, not trying to jump into somebody because I'm like, oh, they really fit this. I like them. They're cool. They got that right body type. No, it's like really screening people out. And then when you do that first date, making sure that that's the right people you want. But no, again, you're screening them again. And again, trusting your gut and knowing that again, if you're not feeling it, don't feel it, don't rush it, don't try to make something out of the situation. Because again, if you do, then you're just repeating, bad behavior from before, and that's not going to help you. All you're doing is perpetuating this cycle that you have of people who shouldn't be in your life because you're not taking the time to properly vet them.
Mm, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so you mentioned vetting.
Mhm.
So I mean you
Mhm.
said the top three or top
Right.
five, but
Mhm.
what are some of the things you are looking for when you're vetting?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I look at again where they are in their life because for me, I'm in my mid 30s, and so I'm looking for somebody in their 30s, maybe of course closer to the mid 30s, because in your 20s you're figuring yourself out. You should really be in a serious relationship or getting married or anything like that because you should take that time to really get to know yourself. And then once you're in your 30s, a lot of people are like, okay, it's time for me to really get on the path I need to go. And it's not like settling down and all that, but just more like, okay, I have goals. It's time for me to really do these goals. So I'm more oriented towards people who are already in that mindset rather than still trying to figure themselves out. You grow, you evolve, you're gonna always learn more about yourself, but you don't want it to be in the manner where you are working with somebody who's still trying to grow, and then you in return are also trying to grow and have to manage somebody else there too. Um, so I definitely say those are the things I vet for, but then also just general things of when you're in a conversation with them, if they're saying certain things right, tone, all that stuff is key.
So my next question for you is, what are some of the things what are some of the things you've done to prepare for, like
Hmm.
re-entering dating, moving
Hmm.
moving into this next phase of your dating situation?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I had a different path than most people. As I mentioned before, I took the time to go to therapy, get myself right. I started going to the gym because I knew that some of the issues that I had was more of like my physical size and all of that. So I decided to go to the gym, get that more of that confidence because when you go in the gym, you're pumping that iron, you're seeing, especially you get that muscle pump, you feel really good about yourself. So again, you want to project that confidence out there because if you feel physically fit, you have more confidence, you love your body more, and that comes across when you are dealing with somebody else. Like women are very good at picking up on very subtle cues about somebody and knowing about, oh, he feels really good about himself because he takes care of himself. So that's a confidence there. So I know if he's taking care of himself, then he's going to be willing to have the mindset to be there right for me in that case. So yeah, like I said, the gym, I did went to do therapy because I know that there was some issues I had before tied to my dad and then, my previous dating history. So I wanted to make sure that my mind was clear and right for that. I also made sure that my diet was right. So, I recently went pescatarian. I know that there was a good result. I'm not saying again everybody's going out of dating scene needs to be a pescatarian or vegetarian. But I know for me, it helped me to, make sure again, getting back to the body, being nice and clean and focused and be my best self because you want to put your best self out there, and people pick up on if you're doing your best self or you're not in that case. And so, also that too, but then also getting your finances right and making sure that you're achieving your goals. So for me, it was like, well, I want to get a better job. I want to move to a different place. I want to do all these things. It was also like, don't start to do that stuff when you're going to dating somebody. You want to achieve that beforehand. So that's what you're presenting out there too, because you want to still be able to say, I can achieve, I can still do the things I want to do here. I can still achieve with you, but I'm not depending on you to motivate me to keep going in that case because nobody wants to be around somebody, or rather, we want to be around somebody who's ambitious, who's driven, who's a go-getter, somebody who's going to keep going with it and are not going to lean on you to drive them to make you successful. It's more of you driving yourself to do so. And you have somebody there who is also helping you to keep on driving in that manner.
So another question I have for you
Mhm.
is, we've been talking about vetting, we've been talking about vetting, we've talked about like the personal preparation and everything like that.
Mhm.
But I'm curious as to what in your life or in your experience
Mhm.
brought you to this place of, hey, I want to, I mean, barring the stuff of like, hey, everybody just naturally gets older and everything like
Mhm.
that. But what brought you to this place of, what, I need to be more intentional about how I'm moving into dating life?
Absolutely. So I would say it's because I'm at a point in my life where I want to be married with kids. My previous relationship, I was with a woman who actually was previously married before, not the time that I was with her, and with two kids. And so I've always been like, I want to, be in a relationship with kids. I'm ready to be a family man, all that other stuff. And I had a trial marriage when you think about it at that point, where, yeah, because in her mindset, she was married before, was divorced, and so her mindset was that when she was in a relationship with somebody, even myself who didn't have experience of being married or doing with kids before, she wanted to make sure that man was ready to be in that mindset, that he knew that what was going to be in that, what were the expectations and the experience he needed to have that. Because for her intention was for us to be married, so that those kids can have a solid, consistent father figure in that case, because they did like that for quite a bit. And so through that experience, it made me realize I can be a family man. I enjoy being a family man. I enjoy being a long-term relationship. And, at a certain point, I was, thinking of and was ready to put a ring on it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but in the way I'm glad it didn't work out. So I'm that mindset too as well now, and that's the reason why I have to be more intentional with what I'm dating. Because yes, I want to, take it slow, let it go, be casual at first. But in my mind, in the back, well, really in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure this person has the qualities that if we are a good fit in the beginning, that we can eventually get long term somewhere where we can finally, settle. I can settle down, and start having kids and really enjoy being a family man.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you say that now, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
let's be candid.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking a little bit earlier. You were talking about, like how you want things to progress.
Right.
You got
I have needs. I understand that I have needs.
okay,
And that, that's why I said at first I wanted to go casual, see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, hey, at least it's casual. There's nothing, too much of a commitment there, too much emotional investment. But if it's something where I know that this person's a good long-term fit for me, I do want to have long-term sooner than later, to be married and have kids. Definitely, I'm looking forward to that stage in my life because I had it before. Maybe it was not my own kids, but being a stepdad teaches you both sides of the equation that's going on there. And so I enjoy that aspect, and I look forward to that again. Which is why out there, I have that. You got to go out there and make sure you know what you want. I think a lot of people when they go up there, they'll say, "Oh, I'm here for something casual," and then they do catch feelings later, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm not ready to be in a relationship," or "Can I do that?" And then some people out there will just tell them, "Hey, I'm ready to be in a relationship," but really they're being casual, and then what you're doing is just setting yourself up for failure with the other person because eventually y'all going to hit that crossroads where that person's like, "Oh, I thought you and I were going to be in it for like this," and you're like, "Nah," and so or that person's like, "Nah." So it's just making sure you know yourself, know what you want, going out there doing that. And then also key too is when I'm out there on first dates is I set realistic expectations. I tell my communication style that I used to be a person that talked, I could be talking with you all day and text constantly back and forth. Not anymore. So it's gonna be a couple of days because starting off, I want to see again if we need that type of communication, keep things going. I'm the type of person also like, you gotta let that fire burn slow. And so you're constantly communicating with the person in the beginning, you guys eventually run out of steam. And so it's one of the things in the beginning, I don't know you as well. We're just getting to know each other, we're talking, all that. So then I will communicate more over time with you or communicate more frequently. But in the beginning, let's just figure things out and see if our communication styles jive, etc. So this is also that is going in with realistic expectations, and I think a lot of people out here don't. And if you have another question about it, we can answer more there, but definitely love to touch more on the realistic expectations. I think that's a key thing that folks really need to do out here to make sure they're successful.
okay. So I mean, for you, how do you establish those expectations?
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned there before, communication. So I tell them, on the first date, look, I'm the type of person where if you're the type of person when you need somebody to text you all day and all that, can't do that. Because I think for me as well, not think I know, is that if I'm talking to you all day, you need all that communication, then you're gonna constantly need that. And then that just, based on previous experience, you're gonna constantly need me to like be there with you and all that. And I like the idea of an assertive, independent woman who has her own life and has her own set of friends and has a healthy balance and is well rounded rather than really depending on me to be her source of happiness. And again, that's a key thing too, is don't be out there and thinking that other people need to fill you, make you complete and all that stuff. Nobody does. At the end of the day, you are the only person to make yourself complete. And you can't depend on others to do that. And you need to really make sure that um yeah, you're just not really relying on people like that. But I think also the other side of the coin is that a lot of people are now in this very me world, hedonistic, I would also say, where they're like, look, me. I gotta make sure I'm okay. I gotta make sure that I'm okay. And then if I'm okay, then I'll make sure you're okay. And it's like that's not how relationships work, especially when you have kids involved and your marriage. Like that changes a lot. And for me, I've always had that mindset where I'm like, this is a we thing, right? Especially when kids are involved, you gotta make it a we thing. At the end of the day, we're supposed to be each other's biggest support and biggest fans. And really, when we're around each other, it's like the ultimate safe space. And make sure you can be yourself there and let your hair down and just be vulnerable. Because for a lot of men, it's a difficult thing with vulnerability, especially with the right person, is a wonderful thing to have. It helps you to grow and come closer and bond better in that case. So I think again, when you go out there with the real expectations, knowing yours, but then also communicate in the first date that, hey, this is how I work, this is how I do all this stuff. I want to tell you this right now so that you and I have standards and expectations now rather than trying to make them over time, because that goes wrong really quickly. And then that person either A say, okay, I'm with this, or like, nah, I'm good. And at least you're not wasting each other's time. Because I think a lot of things in dating culture now is people like, I'm gonna figure it out, or I'm gonna see how it is. And it's like, no, you're wasting each other's time. And especially for the women out there, you don't want to be wasting a man's time. And also, I feel like the women out there as well, especially for Black women, who go through so much that again, don't let a man waste your time either. Like both your times are precious. If you ain't feeling it, don't make it keep going. Don't be giving people chances that shouldn't be given chances. Like you give chances in your 20s, so you're still learning, growing, evolving, and getting to know different personalities. But in your 30s, trust your gut. Don't be giving people chances. If you ain't feeling it on that first date, then that's it. And I know that the other con of that is the dating cultures where, okay, well, I'll go on the next person, and all that stuff. But in a way, you want to kind of be able to move next person because with the older you get, especially in your 30s, you don't have time to waste. So
yeah. Okay. So, in keeping in that same line of discussion, you were talking about, well, you touched on a couple of points about this time. One was, what's it called? The we versus the I,
yeah,
and everything like that. So, what, so a lot of what you're talking about requires a lot of self-reflection, a lot of a lot of self-study, a lot of all of that sort of thing. So let me ask you, me personally, like the Ecko Chamber started as more of like a philosophical view of like how we process things and everything like that. So let me ask you, like, what is your what framework are you necessarily using to parse through all of that stuff? So like for me, part of it is faith. I was raised Baptist. My faith is a little on the rocks right now, but that's still the foundation of my framework.
You have it still, yeah.
But part of it is also things like stoicism, things like utilitarianism, like all that sort of stuff. So what framework are you using per se to sort of parse through like, oh, we versus I, all of like these are my priorities, like that type of
right stuff. Like you were saying, in utilitarianism, the altruism, I'm a big fan of first principles thinking. So definitely in a relationship, I want to make sure like, hey, I know there's three main styles of persuasion, folks. There's pathos, logos, and ethos. And so pathos is the feelings, logos is logic, and the ethos is your ethics. And so for me, I am a logos person, right? I will care about your feelings, but do not come to me right away with an argument or a way of persuasion by feelings, because I know feelings are temporary, and you don't want to be making permanent decisions based on temporary circumstances. That's the best word. So I know that some folks are very pathos. And so, the way I balance that is making sure that I recognize their feelings, understand how they feel is valid. So that's why even when I talk with people, say, hey, I feel bad, but what's going on with you? Your feelings are valid. Don't make me think that again, because I'm a logos person, I'm gonna sit there and go, oh, it's just your feelings. No, your feelings are valid. In some situations, you deserve to be angry or deserve to be sad. Those are okay to have and have those emotions. However, let's make sure when making the decisions, we're looking at everything around, and we're not saying because I'm mad right now, let's make this decision, because I'm not going to be mad 5 minutes from now, or hopefully not. And then we already made a bad decision. Because that goes back to the we thing that, again, I'm going to support you, but I also want to make sure that we are going in a progressive direction, and not that because you are feeling a certain way, you make a decision, I become collateral damage. Because the one thing I don't do in relationships is decisions are made and I'm collateral damage, that because you made a decision, I gotta suffer, and then I gotta help you fix it. I've had that situation before. I'm not doing that again. So I think it's just, again, the idea of being someone else's shoes, understanding, have the emotional intelligence. I think especially men, we really need to work on emotional intelligence and have it when you are dating. Because I feel the ladies out here who are dealing with so many men who don't have emotional intelligence, they didn't grow up with the idea that they can have feelings and be vulnerable and all other stuff. And now you're dealing with somebody, and now you're dealing with a woman who wants that from you so that you gain from respect it, because women are more in tune with their emotions and their state of mind, and they need that from you, and you're not. And so guess what? What do she's just gonna basically be your mom, your therapist, and try to help you build that. And at the end of the day, when especially in your 30s, no woman should be trying to raise you. You are not a child. You have a mom. That's her role of dealing with you in that case. When you were under 18, when you're a grown man, you know what you need to do to be out here. That's why I tell you to take care of yourself and make yourself ready before you go out there, rather than waiting and hoping somebody else is going to make you ready like that. And vice versa, you shouldn't be a dad to somebody or a therapist to somebody. I've had that situation before. And I knew that in my past, a lot of women I dealt with had daddy issues. And so I make sure that, going forward, you don't have to have the perfect relationship with your parents, but I want to make sure that, again, you're not so still trying to resolve the issue you had with a parent that then you turn to me to help you resolve it. That will never work in a relationship. And also, one thing I'll put out there as well is the idea that you can't change someone. And I say, especially to the women out there, if they're listening to this podcast right now, is that you cannot change a man. A man will only change for himself. You can sit there and persuade him to, but in the end, he's gonna make a decision like, you know what, I got this great lady. I know I got this issue, but I'm not gonna let this issue stop me from having a wonderful thing with this woman. So guess what? I am going to change for myself. But again, you saw there, he made the decision to change for himself. So again, don't be trying to change folks. Folks need to be at a bare minimum of what you need to be starting off. Now, if they have some challenges, you both can work with each other because nobody's perfect. But again, it should not be where you're trying to change somebody, build them, and let them be your little pet project. That goes for a man or a woman, because it can go both ways in that manner. So those are just kind of some of the things.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
follow-up question. So we talked about the before, the I, and the after, the we.
Yeah.
But let's discuss that middle part a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought process before making the decision? Like, hey, because like you said, it's like, oh, I'm prioritizing my well-being, my safety, my all of that sort of stuff. But what is your thought process when you are going from, all right, I think now is time for me to start thinking in terms of us as a unit?
Yeah, I think that's not hard. I think that decision is not easier, but you're forced more in that decision. In my previous relationship, when the kids are involved, because you got to go from I to we real quick. And again, there's a lot of men out there who are single who can't do that transition easily. It's not an easy one. So she's never had experience before. The men who do have kids, may not be with the mother of the child. They may understand that better, which is why you see a lot of women with kids date men with kids, because they get that perspective. But I think for me, the I to we thing is always in the back of my mind. And it's always about me in the beginning, being like, what can I do to be there for you? Right? Because I think a lot of times we're all like, oh, in a relationship, I need somebody to check my boxes and they need to do this for me. But there's not enough talk about reciprocity and the idea of like, okay, these person check these boxes, they're doing this and this. What am I doing to be a benefit to them? Because nobody wants to be with somebody who's going to keep draining them. They want to be with somebody who's going to help empower them, encourage them, support them in their goals and values and beliefs, and keep pushing them forward. So again, if you have that mindset in the beginning where, when you're with somebody enough and you feel like you both align enough, that you're like, okay, this is where I know I can add value to somebody's life, and then vice versa, they can add to my life. That shift, that mindset, once you have it, will push you quicker towards a we situation, because then you will realize, even like say you get in arguments and other things, that I'm not arguing this person because they're my enemy. I'm arguing this person because we just have different point of views, and that's okay. And sometimes it's good to have that different point of view, because you may be wrong about stuff, and then that person may be wrong, but you're both bringing the best out. That's the whole point, is bringing the best out of each other, and realize at the end of the day we are a team, and that we are trying to make sure we both are going up. And again, if you are dealing with somebody where you're doing 80 and they're only doing 20, then you're clearly not, and that's what you should not deal with that. And I think that goes for men and women, but I know a lot of women deal with that with men. So again, I would say, ladies, don't do the 80-20. That's not going to work out in the end of the day. You got to be the heavy lifter in a relationship, That means you're driving, which means you're basing a relationship with yourself, which means you might just be with yourself. Because if you value yourself, you will not put yourself through certain things. And that's why I say again, if you have the right mindset, you feel yourself, you love yourself, you know what your value is, then you're not going to deal with people who are beneath it.
I mean,
So that's yeah.
so, but playing devil's advocate a little
Yes.
bit,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you spoke about the 80-20 thing, which,
Yeah.
But what do you say, like, even though we're talking about, like, it's from a numbers perspective, it's very easy to just be like, oh, it should be 50-50,
Mm-hmm.
but we know that it rarely splits that
Oh
easily.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you what's it called? And there are definitely going to be times when it's like, oh, I'm doing 65,
Mm-hmm.
she's doing 35, or I'm doing 70, or she's doing 70 and I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
30 because XYZ.
Right.
How do you, I mean, do you think, how do you navigate that, especially in like you were talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the modern dating world where it's very easy to be like, oh, okay, well, you know um another partner is just an app away or a click away, a swipe away.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say again, it's like I think I heard Chris Rock say about, sometimes she'll play the drums, you'll play the tambourine. And then sometimes you play bass guitar, she might be the one electric guitar. And if you guys are both supporting each other, you know that different times one's gonna carry the load more so than the other, or not even carry the load. It's one of those things too where you go back and like, okay, how am I adding value to him? If I'm adding value to in this manner, then it's not 80-20 because I know this is what I can do to add value, right? So it may look like 80-20, but behind the surface, I actually might be really, really helping that person. Like maybe the reason why it looks on the surface that they're doing so much is because they're so encouraged by me in the background that it seems like they're willing to go above and beyond and do all these things. So I think again, this is number one, what is the value proposition for both of you, right? You do it your job, you do everything else there, but in a relationship, it's the same way too. Um, and then number two, if that's the case, then what areas is that person better than is better to help in a relationship? And then what other areas are you better in there? And once you're able to figure both out, that's when you can contribute towards each other, maintain that, and then keep on checking in with each other once in a while and say, is this balance we're doing right now still working for you? Because people evolve, people change. And so those that balance can change too. They may be stronger in other areas soon, and you might be stronger in another area, and so then you got to reevaluate. But again, if you're in a relationship with somebody, it's a partnership. You're there for each other's things. So the key is communication. And I think a lot of people think they know communication. And there's difference between communication. There's a difference between talking and effective communication. Effective communication is knowing that when I talk to you afterwards, I'm like, I learned something from them. I know them better. I know how to love them better because I know them better because I actually sat down and listened to it. And a lot of people listen to respond rather than listening for. And I know as a guy, it's very hard in certain cases to not listen, to sit there and actually listen, not listen to respond, or always assuming that everything that she's telling you is that you need to solve the problem. Sometimes women just want to vent and to tell you because they have that safe space with you and they just want you to listen and be in a corner and then hear you out. They don't want to hear all the devil's advocates and they don't want to hear like, hey, all this stuff. It's like sometimes just let her listen, just let her vent, hear her out, hear her speak. Especially for Black women because they want to be seen, heard, and valued. There's not many spaces they have for that. So the fact they find someone like yourself who's willing to do that is big, and they want to really be a part of that. And once you have her feel seen, heard, and valued, you have her, and she'll be willing to come and say, "Okay, I feel seen, heard, and valued because of that. Now I feel good enough to be of value to somebody else." And that's what you want to really strive for at the end of the day is just remembering that the other person there is in your corner and they may not have to and you don't want to twin it yourself. So you gotta realize you don't want to twin, you don't want this perfect thing, you don't want it where you feel like you have to do everything yourself. And if you have someone who cares about you, know your values, know your beliefs, they're gonna be there for you enough where it doesn't have to be a situation where I gotta take care of me, that you know that you can shift some of the burden that you may have on yourself to someone else. And I know, especially for Black women, one of the industries they have out here is that they always feel like they gotta always be on top of things. They always gotta be doing everything. because they don't know if they have a man that they can ship stuff to. And I think that's just very sad, that's happening. And so again, it goes back to the idea of making sure you know her well enough where she's seeing her in value, and where sometimes you just sit there and realize, oh, she's deal with this all the time. It'd be nice sometimes if I just go and help her out with it and not even have to make her ask you, right? It's just her, just you know her so well, you know this is stuff she's doing, you know, okay, around this time she's doing this, so let me sometimes be there and make sure I can just help. Because the three words you can never say to a woman, especially a black woman, is I got it. Once you say that and you're able to take care of it, she really is more into there because she feels supported. It doesn't feel like she's on her own, that she actually has somebody there who's really working out for her. And I'm telling you, once you have a woman that really, really sees, you know, she's seeing her and value by you, she will invest so much into you. And again, women are natural nurturers, and all, you know, all these other skills that men don't have. And so you want to bring that out of her, which is why, you know, I know I'm going a little rant, but I'll go in with this point, is that you hear a lot of men out there say, I need a woman submissive. I need a woman who's doing all this. And it's like any woman be submissive to you if you make her feel seen, heard, and valued, right? So it's the idea of doing that. And then once you have that, she's going to, you know, tap more into her feminine energy and really want to be more nurturing, supportive, and be there for you and all other stuff. So it's a give and take in those situations and playing to each other's strengths, but also helping in some cases of trying to transform y'all's weaknesses either together or individually into strengths.
Okay. You went over a bunch of points there. I appreciate you. But I did want to move a little bit. So one of the things you mentioned was having her be seen, heard, and valued,
Yes.
and everything that entails.
Yes.
And that leading to what everybody says, well, every man says they want, which is a woman to submit and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I have my concern then becomes, you know, there are a lot of people who will play like they have those things, who will, you know, who will demonstrate to a point, but then it's like, all right, you know, it's, you know, that's, they're not really about that. Right? Yeah. So how do you discern between those people? How do you make the distinction between, okay, this person is really about that life and this person is just is here for the moment, or right, this way for the moment.
Right. I think the easiest thing is that number one, I said before, trust your gut. You know yourself and all that stuff. I think for women naturally have a great sense of intuition of knowing how to read, because women are very in tune with their emotions and their bodies themselves. They know how to read tone and body language better than man. I will put that out there. Also, women are better at conversations, so they know how to really carry a conversation that case. And so the thing I would say to especially the women out here, it's true. It's true.
Slightly disagree.
Okay, you slightly. That's see, you said slightly though. But I
go ahead. There are some.
Okay, no offense.
No offense. There's some boring folks out here.
Yes.
That conversation will go as
I know, I get that, but I'm saying overall is that because they have the in tune, they have emotion, they have all that stuff that's going on there, then I just feel like that for especially women that they know right away or soon enough that when they trust their gut, it's like, this is not the person, right? And I think also too, it's good to just know that there are some people out there who are just doing a bare minimum and that they're doing enough to get you. And then once they got you, then they're like, oh, I could just rest on my laurels. I'm good to go. And so again, it's consistency. It's seeing again, not even just the big actions. It's really the little things, the little things they remember about you, little things they do in random situations. And a lot of the things I tell women as well, but men too, is what is their relationship like with their parents? Because again, I think one of the questions I love to ask women early on, either the first or second date, is what is your relationship like with your dad? Right? Because your first impression, man, is your dad. And again, like I said, it goes back to daddy issues. If you got an issue with dad growing up, that issue is going to come out later. Because again, a lot of people date their parents. And so if you have a dad and you have these traits and you haven't resolved yourself with those traits that your dad had, then you're going to seek those traits out in other men because that's all you really know, right? And same with men, you're going to seek out those traits in the women you're dealing with. And so the key is making sure that even though some people don't have the best relationship with parents, why they don't have a relationship with their parents. Like you don't have to be a therapist and have to dig into it, but understand what are the things that's going on there, and thus what are some of the things that they're going to continue to deal with you. Because again, like I said, if you're a man and you're dealing with a woman there, again, I'm talking about cisgender relations, but this often applied to folks along the whole spectrum, LGBT plus spectrum. I don't want to forget about those folks on this call. That when you deal with somebody with those things, they're going to be, you got to look at it and be like, okay, this relationship they have with this parent, is this parent and I similar? And if they are, then you're going to be like, okay, well then what are the consequences or something like that? And you also got to make sure that if that person still has an unresolved issue, that parent, they choose to do that, even though, and they know the consequence, you got to let them know from the get-go, hey, I'm not your dad, I'm not your therapist. You got the resources out there you could do to resolve that. But at the end of the day, I'm your man, or whether it's hetero or cisgender or along the spectrum there, relationship in that case. And it goes with women as well, where women should never feel like I'm raising he's all that. And it's like that's not cool. You're not his mom. He has a mom. That's it. And then that's a whole nother conversation about how there should be boundaries between the parents and the loved one or the person you're dating, in that case. So I think it's just, again, also goes to the boundaries thing. Like, go there and tell people from the get-go, these are the things that I consider boundaries, right? And boundaries, like, these are things that I will not allow when I'm in a relationship with somebody, right? For some women, it's like certain, like being called a B word. That's a simple boundary. Like, look, you call me a B word, I'm done. That's what my previous ex told me. And so guess what? I never called a B word. It was plenty of times I wanted to do it. Trust me. But I never did because I loved her. At that time I loved her. And I was like, look, if you tell me don't do this, I'm not going to do it. And again, it all goes to the idea that even when you're angry, having that self-control and being like, I care about this person. We could both be angry. I have emotions. But what I'm not going to do is cross somebody's boundary, because I don't cross your boundary, I don't respect you. If I don't respect you, then what's the point of you being around here, right? And it goes for yourself too, that you should establish boundaries and communicate that to people in the beginning, and then making sure that they're consistent. Consistency, big thing of, are they respecting your boundaries? Are they doing this action over again? When you are down, are they really being supportive for you there? Those simple things you could pick those things up very easily. And I think that people need to be more cognizant in the beginning that people are doing what they're really doing, because when you get to your 30s, generally, I'm saying that now, that you should be able to have a decent read on people. And again, if you consistently be in relationships where you don't have a decent read on people, that means that you need to work on yourself, which means you need to take time away, go to therapy. Some people have worked with medication, therapy and / medication. Do what you need to do to build upon yourself, understand why you have those issues there, and then make sure that if it's something resolving with you, which a lot of times it is really us, of what we are projecting out there. You don't even know sometimes of what you're projecting out there in that case until you talk to somebody else. You're like, oh, this is why I attract these people, because I'm projecting out there. So what you want to do is make sure you're in the right state, that you're projecting out there what you want to project. And in that way, you're attracting the people that you want to have.
Okay. Well, to follow up on that, like it seems, and I know because I've known you for a little bit. You got a pretty good head on your shoulders.
I think so. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Right. Otherwise, you wouldn't let me up here, right?
No,
that would be the wrong Ecko Chamber to have.
Exactly.
So,
but coming from like our background, just talk to me a little bit about, like, even outside of dating, the stuff you've learned, the stuff that you've come across, the stuff you've encountered. I'm not telling you to tell you.
I'm not told no. Yeah, so it's not big deal.
But talk to me about what's brought you to this place of like understanding, learning, that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, so I'll say several experiences. One, I grew up with a dad who didn't have much emotional intelligence. He actually was deeply misogynistic and all that. So I grew up with a mom who always would, push back. and always will stand her ground and be very assertive and let him know, hey, I got value. I've got plenty of value here. I don't go my life story there, but I'm not going to tolerate this from you. And so I like that idea. I've always been around that. And so I've always been drawn to women who are assertive, who are opinionated, who are very intelligent, who are willing to say, look, this is who I am. This is my value. I'm going to stand by it. If you can't handle it, that's on you. And so I know that's what my mother shaped me for on that. And I know she probably like cry a tear there, fair to say that. But I think that shaped it too. I think it also shaped it again, seeing how because my dad talked to my mother a certain way and all that stuff that I said to myself, I can't do that. Right. And I saw even growing up now the effect it's had on my sisters and even to a certain way having an effect on my nieces. And so it's the idea of that generational trauma is real. Multi-generational trauma is real, especially in the Black community, is a huge thing. And so it's making sure that you're not perpetuating that. And so my way of not perpetuating that's like, these are things I didn't like my dad was doing. I'm not going to do that. Right. And so I think that's the key thing that's going on there. I think also my Peace Corps experience of being out there on my own in a foreign country and being in a place where the majority of people there did not speak my language or know anything about American culture. I'm teaching them and all that stuff. It builds your character in terms of emotional intelligence and really connecting with folks and really trying to make it work for them and being in their shoes and making sure like, okay, this is what I think is coming across us, but it's not really coming across that. And I think that, even now me as being a project manager, that's key is the idea of managing personalities, but also seeing where they're coming from and knowing that each person brings something unique to the table. And so making sure that I'm understanding, I'm hearing them. I'm not just hearing to respond. I'm hearing them in what they're saying. And because I know that they know what they're talking about, that's why you're on this team most of the time. That again, I need to be relying on you. And that goes back to the idea that everybody wants to be seen, heard, and valued. Anybody tells you that they don't is lying to you. There's a reason why people out here do the things they do. It's because it all ties the idea of people aren't feeling valued. And again, the easy only way you can feel valued is that you're seen and you're heard. And I would say, especially for Black women, the key is, especially as a Black man myself, being an ally there and making sure they feel like when they're around me, that they're being seen, heard, and valued. And that if I'm in a room with them and somebody else is, being inappropriate with them, and it's not even just like they're saying something overtly, but just something subtly, like a microaggression, like, no, like, again, we want everybody here to feel like they are seen, heard, and valued. So I think it's just again my upbringing, doing that Peace Corps experience, trying to make sure that I was not perpetuating the behaviors I know my dad was doing towards my mom that I didn't like onto other women. Have I been perfect? No, but I feel like I've been doing a good enough job of not doing that. And I know that has made a difference, especially in relationships I've been in, because I know the women, I say for me, the women I dealt with, they didn't have that before. They're used to just having, wanting somebody to be of that, but not having it. So once they dealt with me, they realized, oh, this is the person. And it goes back to something my mom would say too. And what we even say to this day, sometimes people will say they want something until they get it and then they realize they don't want it. So then there's also just the idea of like, not just you sitting there going, okay, I'm putting out there what I'm telling them and being honest and genuine, but making sure that if they're coming to you saying this is what I want, that they really want this. Because if you put it out there like that and you give them what they want and they don't like it, then you waste your time too. And then what you're worried about at that point is then you're gonna have this vicious cycle of people being hurt, then they get bitter, then they get jaded, then they project it on somebody else. That person goes from a good person to a bitter, jaded person, and then it just keeps perpetuating in this vicious cycle. And I think that's what's really going on in the dating scene, which is why everybody hates dating apps. Because it seems like even after COVID, everybody's just dealing with everybody's problems. And again, I'm not dealing with your problem. We all have our own stuff going on in our lives, but at the end of the day, I should be when I'm coming unto you, no matter what part of it is, whether we are the talking stage, we're dating, we're engaged, or married, whatever, that I'm always coming to you right. Right? Because again, if I'm not coming to you right, I should be coming to you at all. And it's the same expectation that I would have for somebody coming towards me as well. Because I value myself. When I value myself, then I'm not going to allow things in my life, especially the older I get, that's going to deter me away from, always realizing and utilizing my value and growing and going on the path that I want for myself. Because they care about me, they're going to support me.
So you mentioned a couple things there
Mhm.
that seem to be a consistent they consistently come up.
Mhm.
You talk about self-regulation. You
Yeah.
talk about what's it called? Self-awareness.
Mhm.
Talk
Yeah, part of emotional
emotional.
intelligence, self-awareness, and then also being aware of everybody else in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also talk about you've talked about discernment. You've also
Mhm.
talked about being the getting to the best version of yourself
Yes.
that you can.
Yep.
Um, and so one of the things that I like to discuss with people
Mhm.
is we talk about frameworks and everything like
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
but like what are some of the tools you are using to measure that or to foster that in yourself?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
we can talk about how, yes, these experiences brought me to that place, but
Mhm.
what are some of, just like some practical things that you are doing
Mhm.
to reinforce those behaviors?
Sure. So there's a couple things. One is just reading constantly. I think a book I recommend people is Q for Charismas by Vanessa Van Edwards. And it talks about, again, how being out there and projecting yourself and your body language, your tone, all that, like subconsciously putting the things in place in your head so that you would just automatically project those things out there. Because you can fool people, you can fool yourself. But again, subconsciously, you're always going to go back to whatever is subconscious there. And that can be tied to childhood experiences, all that. So I definitely recommend that book for folks. But like I said, they're reading constantly, just gaining on other people's perspectives. It don't have these self-help books. It can literally be just autobiographies. I love just read different autobiographies on folks, gain their perspective on that. I think tools, love languages. Understand somebody's love language. Because again, we think we know somebody's love language and when we don't, or we don't even ask. And so sometimes I should have asked, what is your love language? Because I know that if I know that right then and there, I'm always going to make sure I'm gearing all my behavior and things like that to make sure that I am supporting your love language, right? And then vice versa. I'm hoping the same thing is there with me that you're doing there too. I said also like the styles of persuasion. Is there a pathos, logos, or ethos person? Like figuring that out with that person as well. And making sure again, all right, I know I have a pathos person. So what am I doing here to make sure they feel seen, heard, and valued, but also making sure that we're not going on a train careering into the San Francisco Bay, kind of thing. And then also the thing too, as a logos person, I'm gotta keep in mind that it's okay to have feelings, it have emotional response to stuff, and telling myself that I always got to be logical is a lie. That's what is one of those things that sets you up for failure because it's okay to have feelings on something. It's a matter of not letting those feelings drive you to a bad place where you're making bad decisions. Because again, even for example, anger is something I learned a long time ago too as a tool. Anger is misplaced fear. So the question I ask myself when I'm angry is, what am I scared of? Because whenever you're angry, you're scared of something because you're scared of something that's why you're upset. And so when you learn that manner, then that helps you too. And then, like I said before, with the tools is, when you go to therapy as well, they're sitting there saying, again, having those moments during the day, taking a breath, breathe, and just think. And just let you sit there and think. And that's what I do sometimes. I'll lay on my bed and I'll just sit there, stare at the ceiling, and just free flow thinking. Because sometimes you let so much stuff go in your head, you never give yourself time to just let it go. And so you need that time yourself. Silence is a great thing. Sometimes just sitting there and just letting your mind wander a bit is great, especially when you've had a long day at work and everybody's been bothering you and you've been doing all those tasks. And sometimes you don't even like your own job anyways, because you're just paying bills. So that's a lot that weighs on you. And then if you're married or you got kids, whether you're married or not with kids, that's a lot that's going on. So sort of you just need that time to yourself and just zone out and just do your thing that's going on there. So I think it's also a big thing too is just self-care. And self-care does not stop when you're with somebody else. Somebody should recognize, okay, these are the methods they do self-care, so I'm going to let them do those things that are going on there. And you recognize what their methods of self-care is too. You want to make sure their self-care is not life-threatening or hurting themselves, but it's also just, again, recognizing that you both could be one but be individuals at the same time too, and recognizing that you should not sit there try to change folks. I mean, like in terms of changing into the way you want it to be, not changing in terms of like, this person's a bad trait, let's fix this trait, right? That's a whole other thing. And still, you shouldn't be doing that. You're not someone's parent, you're not the therapist. But in terms of the idea of like, this person does this, so I'm going to sit in this relationship and try to fix it this way so they can be in the mold that I want to be. Because again, you don't want them to do the same thing to you. And when they do that to you, you don't like it. So be fair unto others. And I just think, again, give yourself a break. Give the other person a break. I think that, again, the pandemic should have been an equalizer for everybody, but it didn't do that. And that's one of the things I feel is very disappointing. And it reflects in the dating world, ladies and gentlemen, because when I be going on dates with folks, I see it. So, again, give yourself grace. The older you get, the more you're able to better do that. And at a certain point, you should stop giving an F. I'm gonna be nice here on this broadcast. I don't know who be listening and maybe listen later. But it is at a certain point. Stop taking yourself so seriously. You know, the world doesn't revolve around you. There are other people out there. Laugh at yourself. You know, all that, huh?
I said I refuse.
Don't stop.
I'm a self-serious man.
Don't stop. No, nope, no.
You know.
I know that. That's why you take you seriously right now. So it's just those kind of things, like different tools. I don't even call them tools, but just techniques and reassurances and reminders that, you know, again, you are human. You're not a robot. The robots aren't here yet. You know. So give yourself grace and more so give grace on the people.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. But this is, I keep saying in my head this is going to be the last point, but then I keep finding stuff to talk about.
Sound like typical preacher kind of thing.
See, first of all,
right?
I ain't nobody.
This is the third benediction you got here, ladies and gentlemen.
Nobody's
Okay.
God bless you, but I ain't nobody's preaching. We ain't doing this.
So this is gonna be the last benediction.
No.
You did see Brook Baptist. So
I did. You know what? That is, I just learned. I was today years old when I realized that's why this is. But
only do it.
Yeah, so. Only do it. But there's all this stuff you talked about. And I say this knowing who you are, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. It's great to say all of this in theory. Yep. But what are you doing to hold yourself accountable to that? Yes. And yeah, let's go.
Well, the way I hold myself accountable, like I said, is those moments where I sit there and go, okay, there was this time where I was dealing with somebody and I thought I was right, and they could have found out I was wrong later. And so why did I react that way? Why did I think I was right? Or why did I get in an argument with somebody and I just went, you know, I'm always about like ground rules and arguments, right? If we say we ain't gonna do this, we ain't gonna talk about this, we ain't gonna bring each other's parents or something like that, let's not do that. And, you know, I know that back growing up, my dad had explosive anger. And so I know that I've always been big on trying to manage my anger and make sure that I don't cross a certain point. And, you know, one thing is I learned a long time ago, and I learned from my dad, may he rest in peace, is that if I'm in an argument with somebody and I go quiet, I'll start laughing. I start laughing because I'm getting more upset. The reason I'm laughing is because I'm not trying to explode. So that works for me, but also being willing to just get up and walk away. Not saying I'm trying to avoid, you know, being in an argument and actually resolve something, but if I'm going to say something I know I'm going to regret, I'm going to walk away, because guess what? Women and children remember everything you say, especially when you're angry. So for me, I don't want to be known that that's what they're remembering that's going on there. So it's just kind of like those things. But in terms of accountability is make sure you surround yourself with people who are very vocal and very, you know, are comfortable telling you that. And I also think that, again, telling somebody else, you know what, if I'm doing something dumb or something wrong, let me know, right? Maybe I may not understand in the moment, but I'd rather hear you out in that moment, and then I'm willing to come back and say, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry, and I'm going to do better. And I'm not just saying that to make you happy, because, you know, there's a lot of people who just don't like the word sorry. But I think, again, it's one of those things that I say, my apologies, thank you for your patience and understanding, and I'm going to do better. And it's always that constant idea of what can I do better? And again, don't be obsessed to the point you got to be perfect. Some people just take it out of proportion. No, it's the idea of knowing that you ain't perfect. You're going to mess up. It's okay. Making sure that that other person understands you messed up and that you're doing your best to work on yourself, which is why, again, I tell people, if you go and get a relationship, that's when you need to be your best self, because a relationship or dealing with other people, dating when it's casual, is going to really try you. So you got to make sure that you are good to go. but also be in the mindset like, I'm not perfect. I'm okay. Call me out on my BS. And, when we do that, also know that I'm going to call you out on BS too. So, accountability on both ways. So,
Okay, so that was actually going to be my next question. We hear a lot about men being accountable, but
mm-hmm.
what's talk to me a little bit about
Okay.
accountability amongst women,
Yes.
between women, like woman to woman,
Yes.
not like dudes standing on a soapbox yelling at women from on high, talking about you need to not that. I'm talking about woman to woman,
Right.
like, because especially recently, we have been seeing a lot more of, sort of, for lack of better language, and I know this is the way I say it is already going to piss some people off. Like, bad behavior not being called out by people.
Yes.
This happens between brothers. It happens between women as well. So how do you? I mean, because there's only so much we can do, right? We can call each other out,
right?
But if we're talking about dating, at least between cis relationships and everything like that, at the end of the day, we are going to have to interact with women, and we're going to need, so go ahead and speak on it.
So I'll say that the one thing I saw in a previous relationship is where, to an extent, my ex's friends did call her out and stuff, right? I would talk to her about it, and then I would mention it to her friends. I wouldn't say too much, because again, I think a big thing too in these relationships that are going wrong is that people are putting too much of the relationship stuff out there on social media and telling other people. Like your sex life, another thing, if you're dealing with somebody else, should not be among your friends. That is none of their business. And it's something that really sensitive stuff too, because it goes back to the idea is I want to safe space with you. I'm not dating your friends. I'm not dating your mama or your dad or anything like that. That stuff stays between us. I'm just saying Kiki Palmer's all I'm saying. Because I'm Kiki on that. I'm gonna put that right there. Because that brother did his messed up stuff. I will go on record for that. But I think the idea is that's why, again, you need to make sure that you don't make a relationship about y'all, that you still are well-rounded and still can continue to communicate and connect with your friends and family. Because your friends and family, especially if you are telling them the right things in a certain relationship, will be like, yeah, you ain't doing it right. You were being trashed that time. Or the other person was there too. And that helped in certain cases, which I encourage, that time and next. Be with your friends. Because your friends are looking at my stuff too, like he's a good man. Give him a break on this. When you're doing it, you're doing wrong here. And he's the best man we've seen around you with him. So we're all gonna make sure this is gonna work, right? But it's also the idea that you got to make sure that your own friends are calling you out that stuff, right? It's again the idea that you surround yourself with the right people. They're gonna call you out on stuff. And sometimes with times I go to friends like, this is what they do, she did this, blah, blah, blah. They're like, no, you got to think from perspective. What about this? What about that? And that's why I think it's good too. And people are going, let me say this right. It's good for men to have women as friends, platonically, because it is. It is. Hold on. You go ahead and look at me. I'm looking right at the camera. I'm looking at the camera for the audience.
I'm waiting
because
go ahead.
You gotta make sure it's personal, right? Like you guys are really platonically, because especially I'll say more so for single men. Now, if you're in a relationship with a woman, you gotta really assess your platonic relationship with women and make sure that it ain't a threat to her, right? Because at the end of the day, she's already there.
All right, you're one for one.
Okay, they're one for one.
Okay.
But I'm saying for the single men, not every woman you do in your life, it should be this opportunity. It's always sexual. There's there's many advantages of having platonic relationships with women because they will give you the women's perspective on it. And then when you tell them something, they'll let you know, or you let them know. And then they're like, okay, look, for one respect, this is how it is. Like you can sit there and fight it. You can argue against it and be like, I don't like this. But at the end of the day, that's how you're going to have that. Every woman there after this is going to respond the same way. Right. So either you're going to learn from me as your friend we ain't doing anything together to give you that female perspective, or you're going to keep messing up.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think that's the key there too, is making sure, because even when I was in a relationship before, my ex at that time actually appreciated that I have female friends, because what it also shows women too, as well as your female friends, you have a strong friendship with them, that's, not a threat, but just like a genuine one, is that you have respect for women, that you hear their voice, you see them as seen, heard, and valued. So if you do that with them, you're gonna do that with her. And she knows also that, again, you're not tied to just the male perspective. You don't have a male echo chamber, lack of, pun intended. So either way, you have a well-rounded perspective on life. And again, like I said, it goes back to something I said earlier, that we as men have some things we do well, and there's some things that women really do well. And in terms of conversation, quality conversation, emotional intelligence, able to look at other people's perspectives and being in tune with yourself and staying true to yourself, women actually do that better than men. I'm going to put that on record right now. So, I, yeah, that's what I'll say.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you.
Yep. I'm 3 for 3.
I think you're 2.5 for
2.5.
2.5. Yes.
Stop, can't win them all.
No.
3 is 3.
Yeah. We'll say 2.5. You know, 2 points. Yes.
The math ain't mathing. But go ahead. Next question, please.
Next question.
Yeah.
Quit being a hater.
Right. Wait, because I know you have another question. I know this is like you're supposed to be your 4th, 5th, whatever benediction is.
See, yes and no. So the last question. This is the last question. The last question is going to be, all right. We've run the gamut. Right. So what is one thing, because like I said, we've discussed, you are about to start entering this dating scene.
Well, formally, I've been talking to folks here and there, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But formally, like putting myself out there.
Okay.
Right. So,
and we talked about being self-aware.
Yes.
So, what is a weakness of your own that you think other people should really be addressing?
I wouldn't say weakness. I think it's something I need to work on. Is I know that I've worked on making sure that any issues I have with my previous relationship are not flow into the next one, and be mindful of little things here and there, that when I'm dealing with somebody else, this person is their own person, and that I should not sit there and be going, oh, well, that's a red flag. Oh, I remember this person before me did this, and like that ruins things for people, because then you don't give them the opportunity to really be themselves and let them, like, you build with them. In that case, you're judging them based on like the sins of the father kind of argument, right? And I know this because when I was in a previous relationship, that happened a lot, where that person, because they were in a bad space, which I learned through therapy, that I dealt with people in bad spaces because I had kind of this savior complex, which is a whole nother topic. I'll put that out there.
We will be back.
Yes. And so, and so because of that, that person was in a bad space. Because they were in a bad space, they always were judging me based on the people they had before. And generally they were in a bad space because they just recently got out of a really bad long-term relationship. So they were still judging by that other person. And so I've learned too that I can't be doing that to others. Have I done that? And that's why, last year when I told you I went out there too early, I was starting to do that because it was too early. So I still was, still reconciling with all the stuff that was going on with the previous person. And I give myself time to take away from that space and say, what was some of the stuff that was them? What was some of the stuff that was me? Because a lot of people love to sit there and go, I have a crazy ex. And it's like, no, that's not the case. You also had your own stuff too. I was really good in the last relationship. There were some things I didn't deserve to have to go through. But again, I also learned too that there were some things I could have done better. And because I recognized that I was in this state or allowed these things to happen, I was with that person, I should not let that go with the next person. But just because I'm being mindful, that doesn't mean that I automatically have to judge. The other person has to take the sins of the previous person. And that's very hard for a lot of people to do. And even for myself, it took a while, and I could put myself back out there. Could that happen again? Probably. But it's not like that. But I'm hopeful that with all the stuff I've been doing to make me work on me, that I'm more conscious of other people and, taking them from where they are. Because, I'm wearing my Nirvana shirt, come as you are is one of the songs of Nirvana does, always. well-rounded in music.
I was thinking more creep, but you know, that's
Creed.
creep. Yeah,
Creed. It's
yeah.
Creed. I mean, brother Nirvana. Creed.
Oh, that one.
Brother,
What?
well-rounded in music, and you just go put your
whatever. You
like
disappearing
this.
anyway. You
Like
the faded man.
You know
Anyway,
that-
so anyway, let me get back to my point. That again, it's all about going back to the idea, like in a weakness, I would say the strength in that is that I've always had to constantly remind myself that this person is them. They are not my ex. They're not anybody before them. I need to judge them and see them as they are. And that I'm not perfect either. And that if I'm judging them on that, they can easily come back to me like, I'm gonna judge you by my ex. And again, that just turns terrible because then that shows no growth upon people. When you are able to be like, this person's not my ex. They do have similar traits, certain things here and there, which I need to be more mindful of when I act around them, but they're not my ex. That shows growth because it takes people a long time to be able to move on from people. So that I say is a weakness, but a weakness that I'm aware of, and because I'm aware that it can be a strength.
Okay. Well, brother, I appreciate you. I mean, I know we laugh at each other, we give each other the business all the time, but thank you very much for coming over here and having this discussion. I hope everybody listening can take something away from it.
Absolutely.
If nobody's told you they love you, I do.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Okay.
Same to y'all. If nobody's told you they love you, we do. Take care of yourselves. Take it easy.
Yep.
Peace.
Have a good one.